They told her to surrender. She smiled and drew her blade. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a reckoning the galaxy would never forget. Ultimatum, the Kradik didn't make requests. They issued ultimatums. And on this day, orbiting the smoldering ruins of Tarsi's 9, the Kradik High Marshal did exactly that. Inside the cold, steel-walled chamber aboard Dominion flagship Heractyl, the last human prisoner was dragged in, wrists bound in shock-steel cuffs, boots scraping against a floor stained with the blood of 3 other species that had refused to kneel. She was covered in dust, burns on her side, one eye bruised shut, lip cracked. She stood upright anyway. General Corksel of the Kradik Dominion approached with mechanical grace. 7 feet tall, spine reinforced with obsidian plates, his species had long declared themselves the perfected warriors of the galaxy. And yet, the human woman standing before him didn't tremble. "Your people are gone," Corksel growled. "Your colony sterilized. Your fleet dissolved. Your leadership executed. Your command node compromised. You are the last thread of a species that burned too brightly and died too slow. And yet here you stand." The human's only response was a slow blink. A Kradik honor guard stepped forward with a long rectangular holopad. A script rolled up in a dozen dialects: Dominion Standard, Galactic Basic, and Human Terran English. It was a surrender declaration, a symbolic humiliation. She'd read it, speak the lines, bow her head, and be archived as a living trophy. Corksel extended a clawed hand. "Your final role, Commander Myra Solon. The camera drones are ready. Your speech will travel across the stars. The broken remnants of your kind will learn obedience. All that is left is your cooperation." A long pause. Then Myra raised her head. Her good eye was bright, clear, and utterly still. "You're wrong about something," she said. Her voice didn't shake. Corksel narrowed his eyes. "Which part?" Myra smiled faintly. "I'm not here to surrender." In a single movement, her hands twisted outward. The cuffs fell, not broken, unlocked, somehow bypassed. Before the guards could react, she stepped in. A blade extended from her wrist, not a plasma weapon, not alien tech, but a monomolecular carbon-edge knife, a human relic. Her wrist turned, a throat opened, a body dropped. The chamber erupted. 3 Kradik guards surged forward, but Myra didn't flinch. She slid beneath the first's lunge, buried the blade in the second's side, used the body as a shield, then pivoted and cut clean across the third's knee. Corksel roared, "Kill her!" Plasma bolts flew. Myra vanished behind a support column. Sparks sprayed as metal tore, but she was already moving again, close, fast, brutal. One by one, elite Dominion guards fell to a human with nothing left to lose. Corksel activated his exosuit. The armor locked around him, amplifying strength, feeding real-time combat telemetry. He was built for war, designed for slaughter, and yet his hands trembled. Myra stepped out into the open, blade dripping, face calm. He snarled and charged. She ducked, slid through the blade. It struck the power junction behind him, exploded in a flash of white heat. The suit failed. The room went dark. When the backup lights flickered on, Corksel was alone. Behind him, the Dominion's emergency broadcast channels activated. Screens across half the quadrant lit up with Myra's face, blood on her cheek, breathing steady, eyes burning. "This is Commander Myra Solon of Earth," she said. "I was supposed to surrender today. Instead, I remembered who we are." She stared into the lens. "To those watching, humans are not extinct. We are not broken. We are behind you, around you, inside your systems. Every chain you forged, we've already slipped." Then came the final sentence, delivered in a whisper. "We never stopped fighting." The feed cut. Back in the chamber, Dominion reinforcements arrived. They found only dead guards, a malfunctioning general, and a single symbol etched into the floor. The old Earth resistance mark. A single blade inside a broken ring. 3 hours later, aboard a Kradik research vessel orbiting the uninhabited moon Zarn 3, a long dormant file decrypted itself. It came from an ancient Terran satellite, disguised as debris. Project EXO-4 activation confirmed. Sleeper asset, SOLEN Myra status, live. Mission directive, collapse. Faintly across multiple Dominion systems, human encryption keys began pulsing. Signals reconnected. Old AI stirred. Humanity hadn't sent a warning. They'd sent Myra. Dominion blood protocol: no empire survives by underestimating a ghost. And Myra Solon wasn't a soldier anymore. She was a haunting. After her escape from Heractal, the Kratic Dominion didn't deny what had happened. They simply stopped discussing it. Silence was their armor. It had always worked, until now. Myra's signal had spread far beyond a battlefield. She wasn't attacking the Dominion's body. She was collapsing its mind. Her face wasn't viral. It was venom. Where it appeared, control unraveled. First came Erection 5, a cold mining moon reduced to indentured labor. The workers wore shock collars, mined until they bled and died quietly. That was the plan. Quiet death. No stories. No uprisings. Until the entire command center lost power. Cameras went dark for 11 minutes. When they rebooted, there were no guards. No overseers. Just workers standing in silence, collars broken and crushed beneath their boots. One message was left on the comms channel, scrawled into the mainframe in old Earth script. "We are awake." The Kratic response team arrived to find the facility emptied. Every worker had vanished. No ships, no signals, just a single blade embedded in the central command chair, human steel vibrating softly. 2 cycles later, Myra appeared on Velen Station. Not in person, through the voice system of the Dominion's encrypted relay hub. The AI controlling communications began stuttering, then speaking in her voice. It broadcast a loop. "You think silence protects you, but silence is where we live." By the time the Kratic reset the system, Myra had already rerouted every Dominion transmission through a chain of old Earth satellites buried in the black. Every war order, every deployment, every cry for help, she saw all of it. She wasn't intercepting commands. She was writing the battlefield. The panic in Kratic command was viral but internal. Externally, they displayed dominance. Internally, they launched Protocol Thorn, a counterinsurgency network trained for deep hive assassinations. Artificial soldiers bred to think like humans, kill like Kratic, and fear nothing. They were deployed to the Ark Fold, a prison ring used for breaking what was left of human resistance. Myra struck during the transfer of prisoners. She disabled the containment grid without harming life support, sealed the guards inside their own gravity cells. One of the prisoners, ex-pilot Rye's handler, asked her, "Are we escaping?" "No," Myra said, unlocking a weapons crate with her blood ID. "We're going home." They didn't flee. They didn't hide. They scuttled the prison, launched an old Earth stealth cruiser, and left behind only one transmission. "You can't detain memory, and you forgot what we were." From that moment, it was no longer just Myra they feared. It was the story she carried. Kratic systems began to fold under paranoia. Every blackout, every equipment failure, every symbol scratched into a wall, they blamed her. Sometimes it was her. Sometimes it wasn't. It didn't matter. Her myth had become weaponized. The Dominion gathered the War Council. They wore ceremonial bone helms, armor grown from living carapace, and spoke without emotion. Still, the silence before the meeting began was heavier than any formal decree. Executor Valzarn broke it. "She is no longer a variable. She is a contagion," strategist Linketh disagreed. "She is a strategy, a program. She didn't escape. She was released." They initiated Protocol Blood Veil. It was a mistake. Blood Veil agents were anti-human constructs, born from genetic rot, laced with venomous psionics, trained to hunt emotion and feed on memory. The Kratic had built them in secret after the war, assuming they'd never need them. Myra killed the first 3 in under 20 seconds. They found the footage later, half corrupted. It showed Myra walking calmly through smoke, her blade humming with vibrational resonance. The Blood Veil agents reacted too late. They weren't used to fear. They couldn't adapt to it. She didn't hesitate. She disabled them without speaking. No monologue, no flourish. Only a message left in their ship's neural core: "Send more." Then came Heliox Prime, a Dominion black site deep in the belt of a collapsing star, officially erased from all maps. Unofficially, a lab for experiments that violated every known treaty. They tested on humans there. Mixed Terran DNA with Dominion nerve silk, tried to override human instinct with chemical obedience. Every subject was written off as unsalvageable. Myra breached the lab without a ship. Kradix sensors detected a gravitational distortion. A piece of debris shouldn't have survived the star's pull, but it did. And when it struck the station hull, nothing exploded. The airlock stayed sealed. Inside, Myra emerged in vacuum armor forged from the remnants of a destroyed stealth corvette. She walked silently through 3 floors of labs, slit 24 throats, released every test subject. She didn't have to convince them to fight. She only told them their real names. One subject, a hybrid named Thorn, asked her, "Why help us? We're not even human anymore." Myra looked him in the eyes. "That's what they told you, but your blood hasn't forgotten." By the time Dominion reinforcements arrived, the lab was burning from within. Every control room destroyed, every experiment gone. The final broadcast from Heliox Prime was garbled, but one phrase was clear: "We remember Earth." Back at Dominion High Command, a secondary council met. This one smaller. Secret, 5 surviving elders of the original war with Earth. They studied Myra's actions, not as chaos but as code. Her strikes weren't random. They aligned with old Earth battle doctrine. Pressure points, disorientation, symbolic targets. Someone had trained her for this. Someone had expected the fall of humanity. She wasn't a survivor. She was a sleeper agent. The Council ordered the excavation of forbidden records, Project EXO-4. Even Dominion intelligence had assumed it was propaganda, a psychological deterrent. Now they understood. It was real, a Terran contingency plan. If humanity fell, someone would rise, a symbol, a ghost, a blade. Her activation phrase had likely been embedded in failure itself, the moment humanity lost Earth. Myra wasn't Earth's revenge. She was Earth's insurance policy. In the void between sectors, Myra docked on an abandoned relay satellite. Inside, an old AI flickered to life. It scanned her retina, verified her heartbeat. Identity confirmed. Commander Myra Solon. EXO-4. Primary directive reactivated. Asset status unbroken. A voice greeted her. It was hers, but younger, recorded years ago. "If you're hearing this, the galaxy thinks we're dead. Good. That means it's time to remind them what a human really is." The AI handed her a list: coordinates, hidden allies, buried weapons, rogue Earth satellites, encrypted routes. She didn't smile. She simply said, "Show me the closest Dominion stronghold." At that moment, in 27 scattered colonies, human captives stood straighter. Words passed through mining camps, whispered in code, scratched into walls. The blade returned. And where she went, the Dominion cracked. She wasn't a rebellion. She was what came after it. Legacy Blade, the Dominion had ruled for centuries through technological supremacy, generational fear, and absolute control. But Myra Solon wasn't breaking rules anymore. She was breaking belief systems. The Kradix had survived wars, uprisings, even plagues. What they hadn't faced was a myth that bled. And Myra didn't just bleed. She cut deeper every time she did. Her next move was calculated, brutal, and symbolic. She returned to Earth, not to its orbit, to the surface. What remained of the human homeworld was nothing but ruin, charred continents, glass deserts, irradiated oceans. After the Dominion bombed it during the first collapse, it had been left untouched. A dead monument, a warning, but Earth held secrets. Beneath the rubble of Geneva Command, once humanity's final bastion, lay vaults, old-world tech, black site bunkers buried kilometers underground. Dominion scanners had tried to map them, failed, because the humans had buried more than bunkers. They had buried a memory. Myra descended through a storm front of ash and static. Her ship, a fractured recon pod with Dominion ID spoofers, disintegrated on landing just as planned. She activated her pulse beacon and entered the ruins on foot. The deeper she went, the quieter everything became. She didn't need maps. Her blood carried the path. Project EXO-4 had marked her genome with a unique harmonic key. As she passed a collapsed corridor under Sector Zero, hidden doors opened. Lights flickered on after decades of silence. At the lowest level, in a vault wrapped in neutron mesh and echo steel, she found it, the blade of echoes, forged in Earth's final days, bound to human DNA, more than metal, more than a weapon, a living archive of every wielder before her. Encoded with neural fragments embedded with silent war songs, the blade didn't just cut, it remembered. As Myra wrapped her fingers around the hilt, it pulsed. And the voices came, not ghosts, echoes of generals, of martyrs, of soldiers who had made Earth's last stand. They didn't scream, they didn't beg, they whispered tactics, coordinates, weak points in Dominion fleet formations. And one final directive: Nephos must fall. Nephos wasn't a planet, it was the mind. The Dominion's artificial conscience core, known only to its highest command tiers, was housed inside a sentient satellite lattice near the core of the Hellion spiral. Every strategy, every adaptation, every new war doctrine, they all came from Nephos. It wasn't built to be defeated. It was built to be forgotten, but Myra had the coordinates now. Earth had known about it, and had prepared one weapon capable of breaching its defenses. She held it in her hand. The blade shimmered, absorbing light like a black hole. Myra didn't smile. She turned from the vault, activated the deep-buried comm station, and broadcast 3 words in dead Earth code. Begin final protocol. Across the galaxy, things moved. A dormant human AI in the Eridanus shard booted up. A stealth ship buried in asteroid 61- powered online. Old Earth satellites activated hidden drives and realigned toward Nephos. And in every resistance cell, Myra's sigil glowed. The war wasn't over. The real war had just started. But before she could reach Nephos, Myra had to pass through the moons of Lestari, 3 orbital defense rings, each one built for a single purpose: to destroy anything attempting to breach the inner sanctum. They were home to the Dominion's elite clone regiments. Bioenhanced, emotionless, tactically perfect. Clones 1 to 3 carried plasma carbines. Clones 4 to 7 carried psi-blades and mental disruption fields. Clones 8 and above didn't carry weapons, they were the weapons. The first moon detected Myra's approach, not in a flagship, not even a dropship. She was on a broken fighter with half a wing and 1 engine sparking, but the signature matched dozens of Dominion transponder codes. She'd built it from stolen wrecks. It got her past the first layer, but they were waiting. 50 Dominion warframes activated. Defense satellites locked on. She landed anyway. No stealth. No tricks, just a woman with a blade. Moon 1 fell in 6 minutes. Not because she fought everyone, because she didn't need to. Myra moved like wind through corridors, shut off lights, corrupted guidance systems, used Dominion tech against itself. She left behind not bodies, but silence. Only 1 clone unit survived. It broadcast the following before the signal cut: she didn't kill us to win. She killed us to send a message. I don't know what it was, but I think it was our turn to be afraid. Moon 2 detonated from within. Myra never stepped foot on it. Instead, she hijacked a religious beacon orbiting nearby, used by Kratic clergy to transmit mass emotional sedatives. She altered the waveform, sent a pulse command to the moon's thought shield system, and triggered a recursive feedback loop. The minds of the clone units imploded. Moon 2 didn't just go dark. It screamed for 3 full seconds. Then nothing. Moon 3 was different. It wasn't a trap. It was bait. They had concentrated every remaining Bloodveil unit there. The Kratic's last assassins. Beside them stood augmented Kratic generals, psychics, and 9th-generation war beasts. The Dominion believed they had Myra cornered. And in a sense, they did. Because Myra didn't attack it from the outside. She had already been inside. Her stealth ship, now drifting and forgotten in Moon 1's wreckage, had jettisoned a small pod hours earlier. It embedded into Moon 3's waste venting system. By the time the Blood Veil agents began tracking a presence, it was already too late. The lights failed, the temperature dropped, and the blade of echoes began to hum. They had cornered her. No, she had lured them in. She moved without sound. Every slice of her blade didn't just tear flesh, it erased memory. The blade was rewriting reality where it touched. The final Blood Veil screamed without making a sound, his mind burning with a memory that wasn't his. Earth burning, humans standing over the flames, not mourning, watching, remembering. At the center of Moon 3, Myra stood alone, surrounded by ash. The walls began to pulse. Nephos had activated defensive protocols. A cold voice echoed through her neural implant. "You are nearing forbidden space. Surrender and be rewritten." She replied calmly, "I was written in fire. Let's see how you handle your own code." And she stepped toward the final gate. The Praetorian High Citadel stood like a jagged fang in the void, black, colossal, ancient. The stronghold of the Darnex Dominion was defended by gravitational mines, antimatter shrouds, and an elite fleet stretching across 3 star systems. It had never fallen. No enemy had ever come this close. Until now. Inside its innermost chamber, Supreme Strategos Halthar reviewed real-time tactical data with 10 neural ports tapped directly into his mind. He was the highest evolution of Darnex strategic genius, augmented by 3 centuries of artificial and biological upgrades. And yet, the only thing his mind could focus on was one human, Nova Ashen. Her signal had vanished 10 minutes ago. Her last known location had been inside the Citadel. Alarms blared a nanosecond later. All primary turrets offline. One AI node stammered. Neural defense lattice disrupted. Internal gravity reversing. Halthar surged upright, his voice flat. "Impossible. Who breached the core?" No answer. Then the screens went black, and a single live feed returned, gritty, handheld, swaying slightly. Nova was walking down the central command corridor. Alone, unarmored, unhurried. Her eyes were calm, scanning each embedded Darnex soldier as they dropped their weapons and backed away. The legends hadn't exaggerated. The blade on her back wasn't ceremonial. It was a compact, fusion-forged, mono-edged relic of pre-collapse Earth. It vibrated at a frequency that disassembled molecules on contact. But her deadliest weapon wasn't the blade. It was her resolve. She reached the threshold of the command sanctum. A dozen Darnex elites raised their disruptors. She didn't flinch. She didn't run. She vanished. No moved. In less than 2 seconds, 11 soldiers fell. Limbs gone, weapons cleaved, death near instant. The 12th never saw her coming. Now she stood before Halthar, the most advanced warrior mind in galactic history. He tapped into 6 auxiliary drones, 2 heavy mechs, and a planetary defense link. Nova just smiled. "That all?" he attacked. All 6 drones fired at once, converging beams with pinpoint precision. She moved like water, sliding, ducking, cutting in mid-motion. Her blade tore the air apart as if it were paper. The drones fell. The mechs thundered forward. Nova ran straight at the first. She slid beneath its charge, jammed her blade into its core, then launched herself skyward off the collapsing metal frame. Her spin ended midair with a clean horizontal slash through the second mech's head. She landed in front of Halthar, breathing slowly. He accessed his final defense, a personal phase shield and a pulse disruption cannon integrated into his chest. The shield activated. She didn't care. Nova charged forward, spinning, letting her blade ride the arc of the shield until, crack, the shield overloaded from the blade's resonance feedback. She drove the blade into his cannon and out his spine. Silence fell. Halthar collapsed. Behind her, the core of the Dominion's power pulsed ominously. She tapped her wrist implant. "Nova to fleet." Admiral Wren's voice crackled through. "We see you. Is it done?" She looked around. "Command neutralized. Core is prepped. Detonation in T-3 minutes. Wren hesitated. "Nova extraction teams 4 minutes out." "I'm not waiting," she said quietly. "Not after what they did on Viola. This ends now." She turned the implant to record. Message to all species in the Darnex Dominion. You told us to kneel. You told us to surrender. You tortured our civilians, erased our colonies, and called us animals. You wanted fear, but we don't surrender. We don't flinch. We stand, we fight. The core behind her flared to critical. Nova faced the camera. You started this war. Humanity will end it. The transmission cut. The screen returned to static. Seconds later, the heart of the Darnex Dominion exploded, silently, blindingly, magnificently. The walls of the citadel shook as distant detonations echoed from the upper terraces. They had reached the command tower. A line had been drawn. The Empire had crossed it. Captain Nera stepped into the darkened control chamber, the Empire's high-caste generals cowering behind force fields, expecting mercy. She holstered her sidearm, blade still sheathed at her side. Her HUD marked over 24 life signs. The lead general, a bloated Drazari with golden plates covering his forearms, hissed in fear. You've won the ground, Earthling, but you've doomed the stars. You think this is over? Nera took a step forward. No, I think this is the beginning. She activated the uplink. Earth's War AI thesis patched into the Imperial grid through the Citadel's relay. Across the galaxy, sleeping sleeper fleets stirred. Human vessels camouflaged as trade stations powered up. Deep code hacks buried in Imperial systems for years uncoiled like vipers. Thesis spoke in its cold monotone across every channel. This is Earth's final declaration. Surrender unconditionally or be unmade. From the skies above the Citadel, Earth's dreadnoughts emerged, previously cloaked. Thousands of ships phased in, blinking across folded spacetime. Shockwaves rocked the moons. One general collapsed to his knees. Another turned to flee. Nera didn't flinch. She unsheathed her blade, not for intimidation, but for history. You asked me to surrender, she said, voice calm. Now it's your turn. She walked forward alone. Their shields powered down before she arrived. The High Council surrendered with the soundless terror only humans could command, not by brutality, but by proving how far they'd go without blinking. A month later, a new galactic accord was ratified, not dictated by Earth, but written in alliance with over 70 species liberated during the collapse of the Empire. Nera declined command. She vanished from public view, returning to Earth's backlines. Her file was sealed, her name redacted, but stories spread of a woman who didn't flinch, who answered surrender with the draw of a blade, who changed the fate of galaxies by standing alone until Earth stood behind her. And on every world once ruled by the Empire, a single phrase began to appear, scrawled into walls, carved into monuments, whispered into memory. She heard surrender and drew her blade.